the effects of this thing. And then we have to watch what's coming in from the tropics after that into next week.
Not even August yet.
It's not. And I'm going to pull up the wide view of the Atlantic here because I did organize a little map to show what is out there right now. Bill, you were saying Gonzalo went poof.
Poof, fizzled.
And you said it would.
Thought it would.
You said it would, and you're right.
This is the wide view now of the Atlantic, and that's Bill was talking about that new system coming off. If you want to look for info on this, it's called Invest 92L. And if you're wondering why we call them Invest, it's short for investigation area. So we invest 92L.
And what's your feeling about that? I know, Bill, you're you're a little bit concerned about it.
I'm concerned about that one.
Because?
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's Caribbean bound. And I don't like huge storms in the Caribbean.
Right. Because they have to go somewhere.
They have to go somewhere. And this one, we were talking, I don't know what time it was earlier in the day. You just get these feelings about something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I look at that and I said, I don't like it. I don't like it.
You know, and the thing that, you know, maybe a little comforting is it's very rare for storms to go to the same location.
Right.
Does happen.
But we'd be talking 10 days,
it's rare.
14 days later.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a long way away. That's, I mean, closer to Africa than it is to the Caribbean right now.
Yeah, but I mean, even in that time span, it's a rare thing for a hurricane to hit, for two hurricanes to hit in basically the same place.
I don't know if you all remember, I think it was either 2004 or 2005 in Florida. And it was within,
they got
within
3
a
or
month
4,
time. And they got to the point where they were boarded up and they didn't take the boards off their houses because they knew another one. I think they had like 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And but they were coming from different directions. They were coming from the Atlantic, they're coming from the Gulf, they're coming from the South. But I keep on saying 2020, man oh man. You know what I would wish? I wish tonight was New Year's Eve.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? So we can say goodbye to 2020. It'll come, but I'll tell you what, it's already a little more than half over.
Yeah.
I'm pulling up the spaghetti plot on that feature right now. I've just got to, it's like real time. So I've got to actually go in here and say to the computer, if you hear me over here doing this on the microphone, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to, wait, it's not ready yet. See, I'm in edit mode right there. It still was on the spaghetti plot for Hanna. So
they do spaghetti plots for, I mean, that's just coming off Africa.
Once they get, yes,
that's why it's critical that it gets designated in Invest, because then we can start running the tropical models on that and get things like the spaghetti plots out.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to pull this one up right now. I'm just working on it real time.
While Alan's doing that, an update from AEP, where last time we talked, they were down to 18,000 customer outages. They're back up to 23,800.
Yeah, well, that wind is still howling out there in many areas, so that's probably why. You've got transformers blowing, you've got power lines being blown down, and that kind of difficulty. And as we have said, we talked to Omar Lopez from AEP, and he was telling us that the crews are out there. In fact, they've got about 1,000 people in from other places. And that's what they do typically. If there's a problem in one part of the country, they do get help from other places to come on in and assist. But they cannot go up on those tall ladders and get up on the poles and so forth in winds that exceed 30 miles an hour. So we're still well above that.
It's going to be a while. It could be sometime tomorrow before they can
try to do that. Yeah.
So back to the Atlantic Basin, the hotbed that's going to heat up into the August and September months.
Yeah.
We're talking about the remnants now of Gonzalo. That's starting to fall apart. Not too much of a worry, but out to the east, coming off of Africa, the Cape Verde Islands, that's the tropical wave designated Invest 92L. This is the spaghetti plot on that. And keep in mind, Bill and I have not looked at really any other data than Hanna and its effects here. We've been so focused on that right now, but I think we're going to see a little trend to the north compared to where models were previously on the track of this thing.
Yeah.
So that just gives you an idea of how fast on a day-to-day basis just the trend of a forecast can change. If these were pointed in the Caribbean Sea and they were very flat, we would be a lot more worried about it. But the change from yesterday to today, now we're not worried about it. Just
Well, Bill, are you still
No,
concerned?
I feel better now
See, I
because
feel
really
better too. Look at
the
that.
last information I looked at on that took it right into the Caribbean.
Thank you for that, Ellen.
So what I
Thank
say,
you. I feel better.
Yeah, at this point, what I always say when they're that far out is it's something to watch, not worry about.
Yeah.
When they're that far away.
There you go.
Yeah.
And keep
Well,
in
you know
mind.
me, I'm a worrier, so I'm going to keep an eye on this.
I thought I was the biggest worrier here.
I think I have you all beat. But it's good to see that. But keeping in mind, those are educated guesses, you'd have to say,
Yep.
and they could change.
It's just being aware at this point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way that I would feel comfortable saying it's going to do this on August 1st. That's
Yeah.
how far this spaghetti plot goes out. We're
Yeah.
sitting here,
Yeah.
that's a week away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, you watch these storms as Bill and I have over the years, and you see that at certain times of the year, you can predict with pretty good accuracy that a storm is going to probably go north because that's what they do at a certain time of the year. We know, for example, that coming up here within the next few weeks is our critical time. We know that that's when the hurricanes have hit primarily. Now, we had the exception in 2017 with Harvey at August 25th, but typically they come in the first half of August, and that's when we have to really be careful. But once you get in the latter part of the season, once you get past August, once you're into September and the latter half of September, typically these storms will make that turn to the north.
Historically, yes.
Yeah.
But I think we've been hit every single month of hurricane season historically also. Just the chance is much greater in that hotbed that you're talking about right there, Joe.
Well,
So,
when you say we, you're talking about the Texas coast?
yes, the Texas Gulf Coast, I think, has gotten hit every single
Yeah.
month of the hurricane season.
But I don't think that applies to us, though. I think we have we haven't had one of those in recent history. I mean, that's why we were talking about the sea storm. It used to be that when we got past the sea storm, and it typically took a while to get to the sea storm
Yeah.
in the season, so that by that time you were into August and maybe even September. You didn't, once you got that, you thought, okay, it's over for another season. And most of the time you were right, okay? We've had scares, we've had near misses, we've had all sorts of things, but for an actual hurricane, once you got past the sea storm, you could kind of breathe a little bit easier. And yet now all bets are off because
We're at the H storm.
we're at H, we've had Hurricane Harvey and so forth. But I still think that once we get to September and the latter half of September and certainly October, we can breathe a lot easier.
Chances is lower. The
Yeah,
chances are
yeah,
lower, but
yeah.
not zero.
You
I wouldn't say there's
showed the graph earlier where the peak of
Yeah.
hurricane season is September 11th.
And Joe's also talking about the Bermuda High moving off to the east, and
Right.
that tends to bend the storms
North.
very often quickly to the north.
More
Yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And even sometimes when they're looking like, I mean, we've had several storms that looked like they were making they had a bead on Corpus Christi, and then, we'd say, wait a minute, just hang on, they're going to turn north, and sure enough,
Sure
they
enough,
get to
they
the
do.
center of the Gulf, and then they made that northerly turn.
Since we're talking about rules of thumb here with the tropics, I'm going to throw one out there that I don't think is very valid, and it's that
We got time.
the first cold front that comes through here marks the end of hurricane season locally.
When that first cold front, yeah, right.
I don't believe in that. I just
do.
don't,
I
because
do
the reason I don't is because let's say a cold front came through here on September the 6th. That's plausible. Early September.
Yeah.
It just barely pushes through and then washes back up.
Yeah.
My feeling is that the weather doesn't have a brain. It's not going to say, okay, a cold front moved through Corpus Christi and retreated, so I can't go there anymore this year.
You would have to show me a case where that takes place.
I don't think we track the
See, I
cold
don't
fronts.
think we've had a cold front as early as September 6th.
Oh, yes, we have, yes.
Have we?
Last year we had one in July. We had a July cold front last year.
Okay.
We did.
All right.
I remember because I got excited. I went out and golfed, and people were saying, man, this is a great cold front, sarcastically.
But normally they come, later in September and
A significant front that cools the water down.
Cools it down. And then you've got a situation where they're starting to come through, and that any time you'd have a low pressure system make its way close enough so that we'd have to worry about it, another front would come by and
that does happen.
Down
That
south.
does happen.
Yeah.
But just as the rule of thumb perspective,
I
I
don't- you're
don't
not buying it.
I don't buy the first cold front coming through. You're talking about hey, what's that social distancing? Come on,
No,
partners,
just-
come on.
Fist bumping, that's all.
No, I'm just kidding. But the cold fronts really start getting hot and heavy. I guess that's a misnomer. They come through a lot better when I call it the hunt for cold October. When we get to October, that's when we start really getting the bigger fronts coming through here, where the water temperatures are going down, etc. But you look back at 2018 in the Gulf of Mexico. Michael was in October, mid-October, and that was a Cat 4-5 hurricane into Florida. Obviously a different state, but the Gulf is still ripe for storms that late.
And it may sound callous too, because I didn't want to come off that way, that we're happy if it doesn't hit us, but it hits somebody else. We don't like to see anybody else get hit either, because I'll tell you what happens. You're going to see here Florida, cities in Florida, cities elsewhere in Louisiana, elsewhere where they've been threatened by hurricanes, come to our aid here along the Texas coast, supplying, volunteers and whatever they can do, supplies to help people in need. And so that is the feeling that we have. It's kind of a feeling of camaraderie along the Gulf Coast that we see demonstrated every year when this sort of thing happens. So we don't take pleasure in seeing a storm go somewhere else. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No,
obviously
I'm
you don't want
following
to you don't want to have a storm at all in that situation. You want
If
the
you
rain.
don't have a storm, you want friends.
Yeah, you want and you want the rain to come without any kind of severe weather connected with it. That's the perfect scenario. Okay, well let's check once again with our Marissa Cummings, who is out live on North
right,
Beach, and she's
stand
been there throughout the day. And Marissa, how have things changed since the last time we talked?
Well, Joe, good thing that you asked. Remember earlier in the day where I was actually down there, and there was this patch of grass between the Radisson Hotel where I am now and the gift shop store between the street. That island of grass between the street is non-existent. You can see those wooden barriers that are up, and the flooding just seems to be getting worse because those wooden barriers are almost completely covered. We had our markers of talking about the traffic cones and the barriers in the streets, but I think that is just a lost cause at this point, if they're even still there. We can look out into the ocean here and out into the bay and just see that the waves are relentless. They are just going to keep on coming, and it doesn't look like they're going to stop. Our little holiday beach rental sign that was out in the sand on the beach, the next time I said maybe the water will be down and maybe we'll be able to see the legs of that sign a little bit better. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case either. So it just seems like the flooding is getting worse. The waves, now that it's dark and the hotel has lights out into the water, you can see the whites of the tops of those waves as they come in, and you can tell, okay, yeah, there's a lot more coming in, and they're rolling in as far as the eye can see. It is incredibly windy. For a point of reference, we can look at the palm trees here that are blowing aggressively this way, or we can just reference the rain that is blowing aggressively in my face. That's the thing. The rain is the one variable that is very often on. I thought I was going to be able to stand out on this balcony and not have to wear a hood, but I am very, very mistaken because, it's kind of pointless because it's just blowing straight into my face, and now it just seems like it's getting harder there. I don't know if the reason the waves seem to be coming in more and the flooding seems to be getting worse. Bill, you had mentioned a high tide. I don't know if that has occurred, if that has passed, if we can expect this to subside. So I would definitely love to hear that. At this point, it's just waiting it out. We're waiting it out. The parking lot is completely flooded, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the show. But everything down here is closed. The hotels are open. Residents and visitors are in these hotels, but there's nowhere you can go. There is no food being served anywhere. Everything that is in this area is closed, and again, reasonably so, because the streets are just incredibly flooded. if I talk about one more reference point that we spoke a lot about, and that's the median that was in the road between what would have been the parking lot for the Lexington and across the street where the gift shop is. Well, that median is non-existent. It's kind of fitting because this gift shop has a gigantic shark at the front of the store, and it just looks like it could float off and fit right into the sea. We talked about it being calm out here earlier and that only pelicans were out here, but these waters are just way too choppy for anything to be out here and to be safe. So we're going to keep you updated. I can't even assume at this point because it's just constantly changing. I can't assume what will still be standing, what won't be flooded, what will be flooded, but a little bit later, and it's raining harder now, as you can see. A little bit later, we're going to talk to you guys about residents that are staying here that actually kind of tried to see how far they could venture out in the water. So we'll have that a little bit later in the show when you check back in to get some anecdotal experience beyond me and Preston here. I also just want to give Preston a huge shout out. A lot of you guys are giving us big props, but Preston, our cameraman, our chief photographer, he is stellar. He is standing in this rain. We are both getting drenched together, and we're pushing through to keep you guys updated. Reporting live from North Beach, Marissa Cummings, 3 News.
Yeah, everyone's doing yeoman work out there. Preston West, one of our favorite people here.
Men among men.
At TV3, you bet.
Listen,
and not a bad fisherman either.
No kidding. Marissa asked about high. We're beyond high tide. High tide was 7:30 or so. Low tide coming up around 1:30. Then we'll have another high tide around 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Also, the Hurricane Hanna.
Yeah.
Wind speeds down to 75 miles per hour as of 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So you're right
Hey,
on
listen,
that call. 10 o'clock, it's going to be a tropical storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just watching there the video of the waves lapping up against the Art Museum of South Texas. Can we cue up that video once again? Just run it again. Anyway, they have a statement just into us here from the Art Museum. Thank you to everyone sending photos, videos, most importantly, good vibes regarding the museum. The AMST staff has been securing the building to avoid further water penetration. So that suggests there has been some water penetration, as we thought there would be. But can we get another look at that for those who may have missed it? There we go. Just look at that. That's a sight that I've never seen before.
No, I mean, it's just up, and hard up against the side of the building, the water side of the building. And that parking lot in front of the American Bank Center underwater.
Yeah.
And even on the steps of the seawall, the water almost breaching over the seawall. We saw earlier the water inside the grounds of the Texas State Aquarium, the sidewalks, the walkways inside the aquarium, inside the grounds of the aquarium, you can see underwater. It looks like that was a fence or some sort of barrier. And even looking in front of the fence there, they have a little barrier that the water is just breaching and going over, and those are all walkways there. You see the bench sitting there.
Yeah.
With water. Is there anywhere on North Beach that's dry right now?
Probably not. Probably hard to find. It would have to be under a pretty substantial shelter.
Or where Marissa is on in the parking lot, where at the top of the parking lot where it's dry and it goes down into the water. I don't think there's much elevation though on North Beach.
No, we've seen, again, that's just an area that everyone knows floods easily. It floods whenever there's a good rainstorm.
Right.
And this has been certainly that, plus the storm surge. So it has just been a perfect storm, if you will, for North Beach. That's caused quite a problem there. And I'll tell you what, it's gonna be a while before that water goes down. And when it does go down is when we'll actually get a chance to look at it and see what truly was damaged.
And even though the worst is over as far as surge, there's still going to be water pressure up against these buildings and these seawalls and any barriers. So there's still some damage that can be done underneath that water. And like I said, it's going to be a couple more days before we get to take a look at that. So
Water damage, we've had wind damage and the whole 9 yards. Wind, however, has been, I think that, if there's any part of this that worked out really well, it was the wind speed and the damage that it caused, right? We haven't heard too much about that, even though there were supposedly gusts with this storm of 100 miles an hour.
Right.
We never saw evidence that it caused any serious damage.
I think the highest gust we saw was around Baffin Bay 72 on the buoy offshore. I think it got up into the 80s. But as far as wind, now we did see some pictures from Port Mansfield that looked like they had some pretty significant wind damage down there.
Yeah.
But as far as we are concerned, now the wind damage, I mean, it was the surge. It was the surge that caused all the problems for us today.
And we got the the 100 miles an hour from the Hurricane Center. They were saying that that's what the pressure indicated.
Right. And the potential. I think even when the sustained wind speed of the hurricane got up to 90, I think they were forecasting the possibility of gusts to 115. So it was. You're right. We lucked out as far as the wind is concerned, but the storm surge was not our friend today.
I checked with the weather service, by the way, on that storm surge numbers, and they were saying at Hall Pier. I think my mic on.
Well, you're not. We're not hearing you.
Tap.
I can relay what you're saying. Our top story tonight.
Holtz learns how to turn a microphone on. No, but the storm surge, the weather service is saying that the tide was about 5.5 feet higher to 6 feet higher than normal at Hall Pier.
Right.
So that's we were at the upper echelon of that 4 to 6 foot range on the storm surge forecast. So that tells us that it was about a 6 foot surge.
I believe you have another tornado warning.
Okay, yep. This is going to be the theme heading into tonight, is that some of these little feeder bands
Near Ingleside
are capable of producing these little spin-ups. There it is.
Ingleside,
It's this
Portland?
same spot as the previous one was. San Patricio County. I'm going to pause the radar here. Okay. I'm really not. I'm hard pressed right now to find any rotation in here on the radar.
Pull up the radar. Move back to the radar.
I would say though, right on 35 north of Ingleside. That's the only little kink I see in the wind flow right in here. I'll pull the radar back up though.
That's like reading an X-ray.
This X-ray is.
Okay.
That's got to be right there.
That thunderstorm right over Ingleside.
And that coincides with the area we were just pointing
Right.
at with the little dot. So yeah, that's where it has to be if there is one, because that's where I was seeing if there is rotation, it would be. I'll put the dot there where the shower is. Okay, so we've got that in place.
Now, I think they're talking about the one right over Ingleside, Alan, tell you the truth.
One right over Ingleside?
Right over the label Ingleside there. Right in the...
yeah, right in here.
There you go.
On velocity, though, there's really nothing there.
Right.
When we put the warning back up, that's where I see the rotation, if there is any. Regardless,
Okay.
if you are under this warning, you need to be taking shelter, taking it seriously, and know that this is possible. This is another radar-indicated tornado warning, I believe. I don't know the official language on that.
Yeah, radar indicated.
Okay, radar indicated, yeah. And that's what we're going to see. This is the type of tornado activity that accompanies these tropical systems as they move in. They tend to be in these outer feeder bands, and you'll just get these little pockets of rotation that pop up. They're hard to identify. I mean, it's like camouflaged in there on even, we've got another one just right now. And that one's a little more clear to see, but there's actually 2 pockets of rotation that I'm seeing, and the one that just got updated. This one, you see that?
That's what I was thinking. I wonder if that's a storm that was moving towards Sinton, but that would have
It
been
could
well
be,
past.
yeah. This one's but east of Mathis, and then there's another area of rotation that typically when you see these polygons come up, the rotation when it first happens is going to be on the one side of it, the side that it's it's got to go through the polygon, in other words, right? So it's going to be, in this case, on the right side of the polygon and then work through to the left side. So on this new one that just came up, right over Sinton, there may be a little bit of rotation right over you in Sinton. And then there's another little area of rotation. There's the Sinton pocket. And then here's the other pocket of rotation just south of Tynan. And that's going to work, it looks like, between Mathis and Tynan.
That might be in the area called West Sinton.
That's West Sinton? Okay. Yeah, but I mean, you can see that even as, we're trained to look at this stuff, and it's not like it's a huge look at me type of signature when you're looking at the radar velocity product on these things.
And again, these 2 thunderstorms that the radar is indicating are moving moving rapidly, 40, 45 miles per hour each one.
Yeah, so they're going to pass through very quickly. And Bill, honestly, I feel like the speed of the movement of them is almost going to be equal to the speed of the wind that's being produced by the tornado,
right.
which would be why we can't really see them on velocity, because if there's
not a difference.
Yes, there's not a difference, is what I'm trying to say. So you won't be able to see them as easily on the radar imagery. But if there were one over here, I would say it's right in that area where West Sinton, heading toward that 359 corridor between Mathis and Skidmore. And then the other one is a lot more hidden. I really can't tell where that would be. If I had to say, I would say just north of Gregory, right in there. But because all this wind is so uniform, we're not able to see the conflicting winds that are going against. So in other words, you're getting 2 wind speeds in the same direction, but it's that shear that we're talking about, where one is flowing slowly and the other direction's flowing more quickly, but they're going in the same direction.
Absolutely.
As I think what we're seeing on the velocity, yeah.
And again, just to reiterate, we're going to see a lot of these.
Yes, this is going to be the story, yeah.
I've got Nueces County Judge Barbara Canales on the phone line with us once again. And Judge, thank you for taking the time once again. How is the evening going so far?
We're doing well here, Joe. Obviously continuing to monitor these severe bands of heavy rain and these offshoots of tornadoes that actually had some interesting, quadrants that were really plaguing the, really towards the Bishop, area, and then they had a few pop up towards San Pat. So those are always concerning to us, and so we've been monitoring very closely.
Now we've one of the big stories of the day will be, of course, the horrible damage that was done to Bob Hall Pier out on Padre Island, and it looks like the surge has just taken the entire T-head off of that structure and has done some other damage as well. What do you think is going to take to replace that?
Well, I think the very first thing we need to do, and we've already made this decision, is on Monday morning, weather permitting. We're going to go out there with the engineering group who just completed, ironically, as of July 7th, it was put on my desk, our underwater inspections of Bob Hall Pier. This is part of our capital improvement plan. So, number one, we're going to look at the structural integrity of the rest of the pier. And, of course, we've got the restaurant that uses those pier supports. So that's the first thing we're going to need to do. And of course, there is tremendous debris. Everywhere we've got, debris. But in the morning, I'll be on a Coast Guard helicopter, and I'll be flying over at sunrise trying to assess the damage.
And we're just showing now some time-lapse footage that actually shows what happened to the pier. You may have seen this. It's just, it's dramatic when you see what happens to the end of that pier. It just gets taken away.
So that is the power of water, and this
Yeah.
storm is the story today of this storm is surge. Surge did this. It's incredibly a different type of damage than, I thought this event was going to be a flooding event, very
Right.
concerned about it,
Right.
and we could still have that impact. But at the coast, the big story is surge and the power of this water. These are huge pillars, huge structural piers, concrete, blocks that weigh, hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Yep,
This
yep.
is an incredibly powerful storm surge that we experienced.
And this isn't necessarily in your bailiwick, but as you may have seen, the Art Museum of South Texas suffered some serious water damage tonight as the waves just kind of lapped up against it and must have gotten inside. We're not exactly sure yet what the extent of the damage is there, but it just looked horrible.
It looked terrible. I actually saw a picture, and it does. It looks terrible. This is definitely, it was a difficult day here in Nueces County.
And yet,
But,
and yet, having said that, we've been talking about property, and really, as far as injuries are concerned involving humans, that just didn't really happen, at least that we know about, and that's got to be of paramount importance.
Of course it is, and it was a hard enough day with 8 deaths from COVID-19, so we did not need to exacerbate that with any more loss of human life, and we're all just heartsick over Bob Hall. It's an iconic structure for all of us. It was built, in 1983, and we were talking about, how hard it is to replace something like that, but we will rebuild. I have been on the phone with the GLO, with Chief Nim Kidd, with our legislative delegation. We all agree this is part of our soul, and we will get it back.
Any idea at this point, I know it's very early, any idea how much it would cost to do that? Are we talking, multi-millions?
Well, yes. Not maybe double-digit millions, but it's a little too early to know. But of course, we're going to get that preliminary damage assessment immediately. And like I said, we're a little bit fortunate. We had done the underwater inspection with Jacobs Engineering. They're a fine firm. They know everything there is to know about that pier as of early July. And that means we have a baseline and we have an incredible portfolio of photos. So we knew we needed some, assessment after Harvey, and we finally got it done. And my goodness, who would have thought that, the T would be broken off? And so we have to make sure it's safe. So we are definitely going to do that and begin that process on Monday.
Yeah, well,
and now that Gonzalo has broken up, we bought us a little time.
Yeah. Build it bigger and better next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anywhere else in the county, Barbara, that you have taken note of in terms of damage or a particular problem?
Well, I'm also going to be looking at drainage and flooding assessment. I'm going to be looking at Oso Creek tomorrow, I hope, by helicopter, specifically over the Petronila area. And depending on what these bands do tonight, I'll probably look over at Tierra Grande, too.
Colonia, yeah.
The Colonia area. I think those are always my big concerns. I know we lost power in Banquete tonight. There's been power outages all over the city. So I'm hoping that those will get restored. AEP is doing their very best. I ask everybody for some patience, and we thank them for their fine work all day long today.
Yeah, and we've had even 1,000, I'm told 1,000 folks from other parts of the country, other parts of the state come in, and they're ready to help, and they will just as soon as the winds die down enough for them to climb up to fix those lines. They've got safeguards that they have to adhere to as well.
That's right. I also want to bring comment to North Beach. You asked me what part of the community is really hurting. North Beach is completely inundated.
Yep.
And, the county hopes to bring forth a tremendous project, a breakwater project in the CDBG mitigation applications coming up in early fall. And, nothing needs to be done more to help North Beach than to begin that project. It is just horrible, and this is the location of the two finest tourist attractions that we have, the Lex and the Aquarium. we're just going to have to address this. It's absolutely paramount, and the pictures tell the story.
Let me understand that, just to be sure. You're saying that project does need to happen?
Absolutely, it
Okay.
needs to happen. It's a great grant project. It's a breakwater. We'll be showcasing it here in the next few months, but it's a breakwater to really stop, some of this surge. These surges will happen with storms, and you got to have some sort of a mitigating factor out there, and there's nothing right now.
Yeah. Okay. And you're convinced? I know there was some dispute over whether it would have really a beneficial effect on the flooding potential there.
Oh, well, this is a different project. This is you're talking about the navigable canal, which I also
Yeah.
advocate for.
Yeah.
Again, a problem that big needs you got to hit it from north, south, east, and west directions, and that's how we're going to solve it. There's no one solution to fix any problem that's that big, but I think that the canal is one way to mitigate the flood. To mitigate the situation that you see, which is the inundation of surge. But I mean, when you get rain on top of it, it's really terrible to have tidal issues, rain issues, and then surge issues. Those are three different ways you can get flooding.
And out on Padre Island, we've seen also the surge has taken away much of the beach, certainly in front of the seawall out by Whitecap Beach there, and that would require quite a bit of replenishing sand. I'm assuming that you're on board with doing that as quickly as possible too.
You bet I am. As a matter of fact, I mean the erosion that we're gonna see based on the preliminary videos that I've seen and some of the eyewitness accounts. I mean, we suffered tremendous dune erosion and beach erosion, so we're going to need definite renourishment and we've got a lot of cleanup to do. From the debris to the erosion issues, and then of course the pier. I did get word from Bobby Sherwood out in Port A that it appears the Horace Caldwell Pier looks strong. Of course, I'd like to lay eyes on it myself tomorrow, but I guess there are small graces to be, grateful for.
Absolutely, and I think the main one, as you would agree, is just that there was no loss of life that we know of, no serious injuries that we know of as a result of this. All of this property damage can be fixed.
Yes, absolutely, and we also made good decisions, and I really want to compliment our Nueces County and city teams of Corpus Christi. We evacuated the RV park at noon on Friday. Maybe that didn't seem popular then, but I'll tell you what, this morning, in the middle of the night, and it saved lives, because you cannot have that kind of storm surge and be close by. So it was a good thing that we bermed the beach. It was a good thing that we made sure that there was no folks, hovering around the beach in these early morning hours when it might have been tempting. And that's, good decisions bring good consequences.
Barbara, we appreciate you joining us tonight, and stay well.
Yeah, you guys too. Stay well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, County Judge Barbara Canales joining us once again, and we appreciate that. So much has happened today that you heard there that she's going to be taking a helicopter ride with the Coast Guard tomorrow to get a better look at some of the damage that was done.
And there's going to be some widespread damage, especially
No question.
her
Yeah.
jurisdiction over the entire county, from the beach all the way up to Highway 77, Bishop down there, and the Colonias I overheard. So
Right, the Colonia, of course, for those who are not initiated, the Colonias being these neighborhoods out in the rural areas, typically, of Nueces County. I think there's some 85 different neighborhoods, or
Right.
maybe more than that, in which there's no sewage systems, no water systems per se. Everyone, they either have a well or they bring it in themselves. And it's just not a very safe or healthy situation for the most part. And when you have a storm like this come through, you can imagine the kind of contamination that's possible.
right.
So we hope that is kept to a minimum, but that's one of the dangers of.
Got a lot of work for a lot of people here in the coming days and weeks and probably months, and in some cases probably years.
Yep. Alan, what are you doing over there?
I'm keeping watch on these tornado warnings. They're still in effect for another 15 minutes. They're in parts of San Patricio counties, and I think the easiest way to identify where the worrisome part of these showers are is to just look at the radar itself rather than try to go into and investigate the velocity product, because they're kind of invisible on the velocity. In fact, a new tornado warning right like this while we just took to the graphic. So there's 3 of them right in here, and we'll put the arrow on the graphic. There's a new one that just came up, most likely for this cell. Another one that's getting close to Sinton, that's the one that's going to expire at 9:45, and then this cell east of Mathis. So 3 arrows there. Those are the 3 cells that have these 3 polygons on them, and this is just going to be what we have tonight. It's going to be busy with respect to tornado warnings, but these warnings are for radar indicated tornadoes. I'm looking at the latest update, and they're all moving northwest at between 40 and 50 miles per hour. They're all radar indicated, though, meaning that nothing is on the ground confirmed. So that's the radar imagery. I've got those arrows pointed to where the showers are that are likely accompanying these little spin-ups, and they're hard to see. Kind of feel like I'm saying the same thing because that's basically what we have going on, but there's I'll put the arrows on them again. One to the just to the east and south of Sinton. The other little spin up is just to the east of Mathis, and then the new one is somewhere in this area.
It's down near Ingleside by the bay.
Yeah, right there by Ingleside. These are all moving to the northwest, about 40 to 50 miles per hour. They're in line with the rain band that's falling in these locations, and all of these are radar indicated. So if you're in these areas, Gregory, Portland, up and down that 181 corridor, if you're watching us from these locations and your phone's going off with these warnings, the best advice is to take shelter, stay in your house, don't try to go outside and look for these little tropical funnel clouds or weak tornadoes if they do happen to make it to the ground. Just stay put. What we've been saying all day, even without these warnings on, is to stay home, stay in your safe place. And with this warning, if you happen to be getting one on your phone right now, put as many walls as you can between yourself and the outside, and don't be by any windows, because if that were to maybe get a little tree branch and break the window, you won't want to be by that glass breaking if that does happen. I'm not saying that will happen, but given that these are radar indicated tornadoes, they are not confirmed, meaning that there's nothing that we have visual on by any spotters or any people that have reported these. So, it's...
Can you pop the radar up so we can see the
showers,
the band,
yep,
and see how far out it extends, and maybe get an idea of how long we're going to get these things popping up?
I don't know if you want to see how long that band is going to go, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what happens.
Yeah.
And we talk about these tropical spin-ups. We were talking about leading into the landfall, saying, I remember you saying it exactly the way it's happening right now. You said, once this moves in, these outer bands, we're going to have to watch out for these tornado warnings, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah.
The thing about these is a tornado warning carries so much weight with
Yes.
it. Because a lot of times these are standalone storms, the supercell type variety, and when those happen, those really could ramp up, and those are a lot more dangerous than the type that we're seeing with these spin-ups. These tend to be isolated, weak, and brief when they happen.
Even the fact that we've only seen one on the ground of all the warnings now we've had this evening, and the one on the ground was during the day, was the earliest one earlier today.
Yes.
Again, the speed they're moving at...
Do we know if that one did any damage?
I do not know.
It sounded like it was in the middle of
Yeah.
the new Hanna advisory out. It looks like it's still a hurricane.
It might have gotten downgraded if it came out at 9:35.
Well, this is the 10 o'clock
Oh,
upgrade.
10? It's already 9.
And they have it at 75.
Let me see here. Go get the Hanna graphic, the go-to graphic on the update.
it's 30 miles from McAllen to show you how quickly that thing has moved.
I'm wondering why they updated it at 10 o'clock and it's only 9:35.
Right.
That's weird.
It is. Eastern time?
No, this is our
Central
time.
time, yeah.
Central time, yeah.
Back to the tornadoes, is that these storms are moving so quickly. And as you said, even on the velocity information you've been looking at, I mean, it's
Ragged.
Speeds are the same.
Yeah.
And again, we've only had the one. We're seeing a lot of these pop up. We're going to see a lot more pop up. And they're just better safe than sorry. And you have to do this for tornadoes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the procedure during the tornado season. If one comes down, you have to let everybody know. Same thing here. A tornado's a tornado.
Well,
It's
the thing
confusing
about tornadoes is that the warning that you get is so much less than you would get from something like
this, like what we just went through.
like
The
Hanna,
lead time, yeah.
Yeah.
The lead time is short.
And so that's why they put those out early.
Going back to just for the people that are under these warnings right now, just know that they tend to be isolated, they tend to be brief, and they tend to be weak. So if it's probably going to be hard to go to sleep if you're getting your phones going off with the tornado warning. But what I would just suggest, maybe don't sleep in the bedroom with the window. Maybe make a tent, in a sheltered place.
Not in the backyard.
Yeah, okay, when you're a kid, you build forts and stuff with the pillows and maybe do that tonight in a central hallway and have a fun thing out of it rather than it be a scary thing. If you have kids or something like that, make one of those forts and do it in the middle of your house, so you're already in a safe place if you do happen to find yourself and your phone blowing up with the tornado warning.
Hey, again, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
If these are going to be going on all night, right?
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't involve cupcakes. So,
Should I bring it back?
no.
Okay, I won't bring it back. All right. Just an easy way to decipher warning and watch.
Okay.
I'm just amazed this thing's in McAllen now. A couple of hours ago, it was here.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't even here. It was out in the Gulf. That thing it's moved right along, and thank goodness it did, because as we've been talking about, look at that, a mere shadow of its former self, actually.
I'm looking at the feeder bands and
I am too. Is that lightning down there?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The lightning on that one on the south that is just getting into the visibility on this screen next to the 3 News banner. A lot of lightning strikes on that one. That's something.
And that's relatively unusual too.
We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that yet with that much lightning showing up on that feeder band. There's actually no lightning in the storms that are happening anywhere in Texas that I can see, at least according to the radar. But for some reason, that one's, maybe it's got a little extra convergence, so you're getting higher cloud tops and you're getting a little bit of maybe hail formation in there.
Yeah.
That's probably why we're seeing that lightning.
It's something we didn't see today. We haven't seen any hail today. Haven't seen much, if any, lightning.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though, down in the Rio Grande Valley, because that's what the governor was talking about earlier this evening during his news briefing, that that's going to be the hardest hit area probably because of the time that it's obviously spending down there, and the flood potential, coupled with the fact that they're having just a rough time with the pandemic. We're all having a tough time with that, but it's going to require some aid at the state level, and that's why the governor was saying that it would be there.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Joe. Is that a severe thunderstorm warning offshore where we see the lightning there, and in the Allen and the
that is a special marine warning.
Okay.
They'll issue how they issue those for
Right.
mariners that may be out there. I don't think anyone's out there at this point, but that's a special
not.
marine warning down there. I was just going to get over to the forecast cone with Joe talking about the valley and where this storm is heading.
Right.
It should be out of the state by tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. So it should be out of the state into Mexico by 7 a.m. There's Gonzalo, and then there's the Invest 92L. They're called Invest because it's short for investigation, and it's just an area that we're looking at to
Now that thing is still going to be big and bad. It may not be coming to the Caribbean, but if I'm in Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Dominican, Haiti, looking at this thing.
But they're through.
Yeah, but this one I
after
think is going to be.
But look at that. It does take that northerly turn.
Forecast. Half the models bring it to Cat 1, 2, or 3. The other half keep it at tropical storm. Of the tropical spectrum on all of the weather guidance. So that's where we stand on the forecast. Don't have any off of Africa other than how they look on satellite.
You know, it's also a pretty low latitude, isn't it?
It's low, yeah. It's coming. Well, it's in that
So
zone where
it's
they
so
come
it's a
off.
pretty sharp turn to the north, what you're saying.
It will be, yeah.
Yeah.
This is just, what's ahead.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I think the takeaway is that
Let's do the next one coming off after.
we're
Here in the coastal bend, waves going across Africa right now.
That's
yeah,
right.
and it's going to be active. That was one we called for near 19 storms, named storm. The storm force and